It's another evening. We want to thank God for this particular one. It's a Monday, it's a fresh week. We have a lot of hope that a lot is going to happen, and we believe that God is going to answer very many of our prayers. So do not lose hope. It's still early for you to lose that hope. But yeah, we believe that the fact that you can listen to this voice, you can see this image, yeah, God has given you a chance to see the beauty of today and the beauty of the entire week. Here we are with our family, our Monday edition, where we discuss education. And today, particularly, we are looking at the impact of zero tolerance policies in schools, but some of these policies might not even be at school. They might be at home, or they might be in the community. Some communities have set principles and policies that are supposed to be followed. Now, we are going to see their impact, especially when we get to the grooming of this wholesome child that we want to be tomorrow's leader, that we want to be the next responsible person that will make you proud as a parent, as a community, or as an institution. With us, two ladies here. On my right is Canon Alice Ddamulira. It's a pleasure having you, Canon, this evening.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Amen. And then we have Mrs. Chinto Christine. It's a pleasure having you.
Good evening, Adrian, and good evening, viewers.
Like I said earlier, we are looking at the impact of zero tolerance policies. Now, maybe if I'll start with Canon Alice to break for us the topic. I mean, the phrase zero tolerance policies. What are these policies?
Thank you so much, Adrian, for that question. I think we shall have a good interaction, and we're not saying that we have all the answers to that. But zero tolerance informs us that there are those habits that are unacceptable in a given society. And it could be a school, it could be an institution, you mentioned it could be a community, or in a family setting. And these, whenever you do these things, they're not only offensive, but they carry a penalty with them. I will briefly talk about probably in the school setting. Now, when we talk about zero tolerance, you are also building this child and nurturing them and helping them develop an attitude towards certain habits. And you're informing yourself and informing this child that this is unacceptable. It could be a family setting. Simple things like, I don't want you to tell me lies. Because we have that, the Bible verse or the biblical principle, train a child in the way that they should go. And you're speaking for yourself the way. And you're starting from one saying, I only want the truth. I don't mind how ugly it is. Tell me the truth so that I can be able to deal with the truth. Now you're having zero tolerance. Actually, if a child tells you a lie and you find out, they are penalized for that. Now I'm giving an example when it's a family setting. Yes. Then I'll give a setting, for example, in school, cheating of exams. And you're training this child all the way from maybe primary that it does not matter. You'd rather fail, honorably than cheat. And we're talking about as they grow older, they realize, wait a minute, I need to invest a lot of hard work to excel. I don't have to cheat. So you say, when you cheat, you are dismissed. And that's it. When you steal, you are dismissed. It's zero tolerance. But what are you speaking for us? You are informing this child that I want to train you to learn that when you cheat, it's unacceptable in any given society, right? But now we're just talking about exams, or we're talking about theft of, personal belongings within the school. But I'll just borrow a leaf from a country that I visited, that's Singapore. When we were left here, we were all oriented. And one of the things we are told that in Singapore you can't do is to chew gum. Yeah. Yes, you can't chew gum. And that is a country, it's a policy, it is zero tolerance. And they are saying it's a fine country with fines. In other words, whatever you do that is against the law, you will be fined heavily. And they also told us that it does not matter who you know. If it is a jail term, you'll serve it. If it's 14 years, if it's anything. But it is as simple as that. You are not allowed to chew gum. None of us carried gum. And you know what happened to all of us? Say, I cannot do without it. But people actually did do that. It is like, when you inform people that, here, this is unacceptable, people will pick on the habit. And that's why you find a child who is picked from a certain setting, put in a certain setting, and they conform. Because it is zero tolerance. Everybody knows that is a no-go area. So we need to understand, one, why would somebody put up such a law? What do they have at the back of their minds? So if you have that understanding that it is in good faith, that is why, for example, if I'm a parent and I'm encouraging my child to say the truth, I want to raise a child of integrity. I want to raise an honest child. So when you talk about zero tolerance, the moment you begin to give room and you begin to compromise, then you actually kill what you would want to see for the future.
Wow, thank you so much, Canon. We are looking at zero tolerance policies, Mrs. Chintu. We look at especially this generation of ours, where last time I was sharing a story that a parent was proudly saying that a teacher punished their child by beating the child, and then the parent went and beat the teacher in return as an appreciation. So is it still possible to have zero tolerance principles in the trend, in the trend of what is happening in the country?
Thank you very much. When she was talking about Singapore, of course my mind went to other places and where they have zero tolerance. I was in China a few weeks ago, and everybody is walking around with their phone. They're not tugging it, they're not clutching it. Nobody will steal your phone, because the consequences of stealing a phone are very dire. They created a zero tolerance law. It has been followed, and it creates systems that work. Let's go to our neighbors here. You can't get into the airport in Kigali with a camera. Either at the border or at the airport, simple. But here it's like announced and announced, announced and announced. Today it's there, tomorrow it's not there. Then another person is allowed, and then anything that you do without being firm, we're talking about do's and don'ts. We're talking about laws and rules. Every society, every institution, every structure requires some do's and don'ts. Otherwise, we cannot live in such a wayward way. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about the Israelites, that there was a time that they did not have a king. And it adds on that very, very statement. It says, everybody did as they pleased. In those days, Israel did not have a king, and everybody did as they pleased. When you have a society which does not have policies of zero tolerance, what happens? Everybody does as they please. Those who trash, those who abuse, those who disrespect even our law enforcers, anybody does anything because there's nothing firm that holds people down. Why is zero tolerance important?
Yes.
Because it's supposed to inform. Apart from informing, it's supposed to warn people against a vice, against a habit, against a behavior. It informs, it also warns. But I want us also to go to the family.
Yes.
In your family, do you have some things that you have laid down as rules and procedures and operation procedures that are carried out in your home? And have you followed through with them? I remembered, even as she talked, that there was a time that I was bringing up children in my home. not my biological children, but children. And I taught them certain things on how to do certain, how to carry themselves in a certain way. But I remember one of the girls came into my room and picked a pencil which had a Bible verse. It had been given to me by an American friend. So I go in there and I notice that my pencil is missing. And I asked 1, 2, 3 people. And well, the home no stealing was part of our deal. But I noticed the pencil was missing. So after asking and everybody saying no, I later on went to her pencil case and found that the pencil was there. And I called her, she was sweeping outside. I called her and I said, why did you take this pencil and why did you? You know, you've told lies, you've also stolen. But then, and I needed to follow through, which I've talked about. When you have laws and informing and warning, you must follow through with the consequences that you have promised will happen. So I needed to punish this girl. But I felt the motherly instinct. I also did not want to shame her. And I remember taking her to her bedroom and beating her for the 2 things she had done. And it passed. But later on I sat and I said, you have not taught her anything. 1, you have shown her, you have protected her. 2, the others have not learned from it. So these laws and zero tolerance that we are talking about must be imparted and also instituted in such a way that people will know that there is, you know, this is no nonsense. I have no way of excusing this, so that they know on the onset it must not be done. I wasn't a good parent to that girl by doing that. Although I think that I punished her, I didn't help her because then she got away with it at least 70%. Yeah, so zero tolerance, you must inform, you must warn, and you must follow through with the consequences that you have indicated. And I know that parents suffer. Why I brought that example. I know that parents will suffer. We talk within ourselves. No, I can excuse. This one can pass, you know. But that way, we are spoiling our children. Even in school, you can't excuse one and not excuse another. Then that means you're not firm in your leadership roles.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mrs. Chintu. Canon, I'll come back to you. What are some of the effects, especially on the students' behavior and attitude, effects of these zero tolerance principles that we're talking about and policies?
Thank you very much. One thing I would want to say, what Christine has shared, that the moment you inform, you warn, and you follow through, you build a system.
Okay.
And that's a given. And I will tell you, as human beings, we will always dare. We want to push hard and see what will happen. We want to try it out, want to test. You know, you say, if I find you outside the class, I'm going to punish you. They'll do exactly that. You're going to see. You're going to find them outside the class. Now, of course, at times as human beings, we are fatigued, we get those motherly instincts, and you're like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Justice delayed is justice denied. If you say, if I find you out, I'm going to punish you immediately, or I'm going to call your parent, the moment you don't do it. If it were 2 that were daring, it's going to be the entire, you know, fraternity. So it is important. But the moment, before you institute a law, have the conviction of why you are doing what you are doing. If you don't have that deep conviction, please don't set that rule because it's going to backfire. Don't set it. If you're saying if somebody cheats, they're expelled. Even if it's your own child, expel them. Right? But because you have the conviction that if I'm raising a child of integrity, that is the value I cherish, it does not matter who it is, I'm going to expel them. Right? Yeah. Then you build a system. And let me tell you, those who are going to dare you the most are those who are closest to you. they'll dare you the most. If it's your child, they'll dare you the most. If it's a niece, they'll dare you the most. And that's it. They'll come late and they'll give an excuse. And I'll give you an example. Usually, children have functions, or maybe they want to go home for a wedding, or it is Easter holiday. Because Easter holiday, we're usually at school. And then your sister calls and says, can you bring your niece home? The moment you take them, all other parents are going to start calling. And children will allude. They took their relative. Right? So that is the power of zero tolerance.
Sometimes it will be painful.
Very painful.
Sometimes it will be painful to you, but you must stand up. Because, like she said, the conviction, you must be persuaded. You must have a good base with which to set this law or to set this policy and to stand by it even in the hardest. That is your responsibility as a leader. And of course, we are not only talking about leaders here, but even in the home setting, even in other institutions, even in the workplace. As long as you do not act fair, as long as the level is not playing, that means that you have failed. The one who is instituting the policy has failed because they are not playing fair. So before you embark on setting up this policy, understand, why are we setting it up? How is it going to help us? And sometimes it may be necessary to outline these things when you are introducing it so that people know. People know. We don't want, if you have to go for a dental appointment, if you want to go and see a doctor, if you need to see an optician, you must do it before Wednesday. After Wednesday, nobody is allowed to go. Those are policies that have been put in place. And then somebody comes, because they know, they say, no, we have a wedding at the weekend. You know that they are doing more things than, but they are stretching you so that they can see how firm are you. So lay your things out clearly, share them, inform, enforce, and then carry out the consequences.
Wow. Canon, any supplement of that?
No. For me, I just want to say that that compounds a system.
Okay.
Whereby somebody will get out of their own setting, move into another setting, and they will just follow through. Because they know that the person who is in charge of enforcing is actually going to execute. It's not about a threat. That is who they are. And you'll see this. A child will move out of Mrs. Chintu's home, or a child moves out of my home, goes to Mrs. Chintu's home, and they'll be totally different. They come to my home, they're totally different. A child who is at home and a child who is at school, they are totally different. What does that speak for us? It means that there are set rules that are followed. And here, everybody has chosen to compromise. That's why in most of our homes, there's no active system that is happening or operating. Why? Because even the place of conviction of why we are doing what we are doing is not there. So it is very important. Go back and establish why you are setting that rule. Like she has said, inform, enforce, right? When you inform, you warn, you enforce. If you say there are 2 warnings, let them be 2 warnings. And the third warning comes, and then the penalty, But, when it comes to zero tolerance, you don't even want to give room for 1, 2 warnings. You say, you do it,
you're in trouble.
Wow. Mrs. Chintu, we look at some institutions. I know there. For example, if we start from nursery school, I'll give you an example. In the kindergarten I went to, no child was supposed to have money. If you had money, you had to confess that you had money and you give it to the teacher to keep it for you. And they'll give you the money in the evening. So one time, my aunt who was staying near the school passes by, and she gives me, I think it was a 500 coin. So while we sit on the assembly, I think they tell us to jump, and the coin jumps out. I was beaten. But now I realize out of this discussion why the teachers beat me then, and they never even gave me the coin back. So I carried the anger up to this point when we are discussing this. Now I realize, and no student ever had a coin or money. Because with assumptions that you might have stolen your parents' money and you come with it at school, you spend it in a funny way because they were providing for us everything. But I look at certain schools now that has so much into numbers, because the more we have numbers, the more the money comes in, and you realize they don't have any rules and regulations governing the school. Everyone puts on what they want. Every student that comes in, I mean, they do what they want. So you realize that the school is run on the masses of the children. What makes the children happy is what the school will submit to. Which kind of generation are we mentoring?
Last week, I think it was last week when we talked about the way systems are changing,
Yes.
and the way schools are more interested in the money more than anything else. Many schools have been set up just for business purposes, so they are not really keen on working on things like zero tolerance. For them, and in fact, you will find that in the homes of the directors, with all due respect, in the homes of those directors, there's a lot of laissez-faire. Everybody does what they want, like I said, for the Israel people. But why should a school be run on such? Because remember, they come from different backgrounds, different ways. If you tell me that I can wear my clothes after, well, some of them don't have even uniforms. In the name of modernity, modern schools don't put on uniforms, everybody's, and we are copying, we are adopting. In Uganda, it is tunonoza. We are embracing mannerisms that are not helpful to our country and to our nation. Because if a school does not have a pattern, if there's no point at which all the children or all the students or all the classmates will feel at equal level, you'll find that there will be some who will be marginalized. Somebody will have to stay in their pink dress from Monday to Sunday. Meanwhile, this other daughter of Mrs. Ddamulira changes twice in a day because she has a big wardrobe. And it brings a lot of competition. The focus is lost altogether. The focus why they're in school is lost altogether because people are busy trying to create an impression of sorts. So those schools that do not have policies and systems in place, it is to your own peril if you as a parent should choose to take your child there. Like I said last week, that's why we run to these conventional schools. Because some systems were set, they may look archaic in your sight, but they are helpful. I know that over time, each of them should look at revising some of them so that they are relevant. But I know up to date, there are some schools where no grab is allowed. So a child steps into the school, no grab is allowed. If they all eat kaung and beans, they all eat kaung and beans. If it's time, like she said last week, if it's time to go for lunch, you do well to go for lunch. Otherwise, you don't expect to go and pick up your manji biscuits and eat them. You don't have them. Everybody doesn't have them. So it helps people. And when we look at those children when they have grown up and gone into secondary school, I'm telling you, you can pick them out very, very easily because they are well structured, they are organized, they are disciplined, they know how to share, they know how to handle each other, they know how to live in a community. Whereas this selfish one, Mrs. Kintu's daughter, who has come in S1, it is me, myself, and I. Their attitudes are also wrong. Am I saying that such kids should not be allowed? No. But let's do ourselves a favor as parents. Let's do ourselves a favor as institutions and impart values that are going to last a lifetime. We are not doing things just for a month or two. We are doing things that will last a lifetime, that will help the child for the future.
Wow. Mrs. Ddamulira.
Yes, please.
We are talking about these zero tolerances, but we also have in mind a saying that children are children, learners are learners, so they'll always be learners. Like you said, as we are starting, that when you tell them don't do this, they will do it. Do you register any stubborn learners who deliberately choose not to do the right thing all the time? You suspend them, they'll come back, they'll do, and then society will sympathize and say, just take them the way they are. That is who they are.
No, very, very interesting when we say that is who they are. It's like when people give that lame excuse, that's how I was born.
Yes.
That, I can't change. I'll tell you, we are creatures of habit. Human beings are creatures of habit. And the moment you insist that these are the habits that we are going to pursue for the reason X, Y, Z, I love one of the traditional schools always says that the girl that you are today is the woman you're going to be tomorrow. And the boy that you are today is the man that you're going to be tomorrow. Now, we also have to appreciate the trajectory of life, that none of us is going to stay as a child. None of us is going to stay a learner. Tomorrow, they're going to be parents. Tomorrow, they're going to be maybe grandparents. They're going to be CEOs. They're going to be... So, can you imagine working with a CEO who has no values? Highly professional. This person they were extremely intelligent. It so happened that they were privileged children, and their parent has handed down an institution to run, when they themselves have nothing in them. I love the scripture, but I'm going to also find it out. The scripture that says, we shall not change the landmarks that were set by our ancestors, right? So when we are talking about that, learners will always be learners and they'll always dare you. Like I said primarily, it's when you have your conviction. Why am I enforcing respect? Why am I enforcing respect that I'm not going to allow a learner to be insolent to a teacher? It doesn't matter even if the age gap is really small. Why? Because I know that tomorrow this learner is not going to be working with the teacher, but it's going to be working with their boss. Is there any boss who is going to keep them in their space if they're disrespectful? No. It will not happen. So I start from there and say, if you are disrespectful to a teacher, it is zero tolerance. We have a student, a student will come and insult the parent. For us, it's unacceptable. You can't insult the parent in our presence. You mean if you can insult your parent, then you're going to insult us. Because, that's how daring you are. So what are we trying to say? We're trying to say that we should not have an illusionary society. We should not just have a wishful thinking that this is the society we would want to see. This is the action we would want to see. I always tell us, including myself, if I look at my children, what kind of adult do I envision? Do I see a man who respects himself as a professional? Do I see a girl who respects herself as a professional, as a mother, as, in the social world? If Adrian, my daughter or my son comes to you, will you willingly embrace them, to work with them, right? So at times we even reject these people and they feel like, well, people don't like me, but it's because of who they are. But it's our fault if we don't prepare them for that. They get into the world and they're shocked that the world is not receiving them because they're used of a certain way back home. But at school, in the world, nobody's going to tolerate that. So if we have an understanding that there will be zero tolerance in the real world, we had better prepare them.
Wow.
I also wanted to say...
Let's first go for a short break. When we return, we are going to start from there. We are coming back.
Thank you.